Some people think my job as a gun lobbyist is just wearing suits at the Capitol and shuffling paper. Well, not so much. Well, when I started Dudley's Range Rogues, I told you that I was going to show you what the life of a gun lobbyist is like. And so I figure I'll take some video of me where I go and when I go places and kind of share a little bit of the cool experiences. So I'm in the state capital of South Carolina in Columbia, a place I literally have never been. I've done work in South Carolina. I've been plenty of places in South Carolina, but never to the state capitol. And today I'm here. I came to give an award to State Senator Shane Martin, who represents Spartanburg area, a little ways away from here. And he's in a small body of state senators. He's one of the leaders of constitutional carry and the pro-Second Amendment movement here in South Carolina. Now, some people, I'm pretty sure, are thinking, hey, this is the South. You don't have to worry about gun rights in the South. Well, those people really actually haven't worked in politics. Because the simple fact is, even if Republicans retain control, places like Texas or Georgia, it took a long time to push for things like constitutional carry, to actually get the Republicans to vote right. Nothing happens on its own, really. It takes a lot of pressure. Sometimes it takes many years, and it always takes campaign pressure. Well, in this case, in South Carolina, we haven't passed constitutional carry yet. In fact, it's on our cusp states, and we think we could do this maybe after the next election cycle. And Shane Martin will certainly be a big part of it. Now, the other person we work with closely here in South Carolina is State Representative Jonathan Hill. And Jonathan Hill already had his 50 cal Freedom Award. And but Jonathan is a relatively young member of the State House, the bigger chamber, of course. And boy, did he make some enemies when he got in there, because he was willing to push for things that leadership doesn't want to see a vote on. You see, in the South, and this is true even in the West, the good old boy network runs the show. When I say that, it doesn't really have this standard R versus D component. It's there, but that's not what's stopping us necessarily on guns. It's this good old boy network who say they're pro-gun, but they don't actually have to vote that way. Many of them, almost all of them, have A ratings with the NRA. But any of you who've paid attention to gun politics for more than about, 45 seconds, know that an NRA's A rating means absolutely nothing. They hand these things out like after dinner mints. As long as you genuflect toward them once and say, I'm pro-gun, of course, then you're going to get the A rating. They're going to endorse you, especially if you're being challenged, even when you're being challenged by somebody who's an actual pro-gun conservative. What does it take to push that then, to push something like constitutional carry? How do you break the good old boy network? Our staff at NAGR is pretty good at that. We work with local activists, but sometimes local activists get bought off by the process, and they don't want to make their state senator angry because, of course, they have beers with him. Or that's a guy who's also a doctor in my community, and people love him, and my wife's good friends with his wife, and there's a lot of that going on. Well, frankly, I don't give two rats' asses who they are, what they do. We believe that the tools for self-defense and carrying them are a God-given right, and frankly, we want the law to say that. That's why we push constitutional carry. Now, in South Carolina here, we think it's probably a heavy lift to hold some people accountable in this coming election, and then go back in next year in 2023 and try and pass it. But we're doing our very best to do it. We know that we kind of call South Carolina our Vietnam, because it feels like we've been here for a long time, been operating here for a long time. And don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful building. You should see the inside. It's fantastic. It's springtime in South Carolina. Who wouldn't want to be here? But frankly, we want to pass the bill. And so we're doing our very best. That's one of the reasons we always call for help from people all around the country to pass bills in other states. Because if we gang up, use our resources, the legislators here don't care about a voter who calls them from Wisconsin. But that voter in Wisconsin can put money into a fight and put more pressure on the politicians to activate more gun owners here in South Carolina. And they do care about that. That's the one thing politicians do care about. They care about re-election. If you threaten their re-election, they start voting right, especially if they're in good districts. Now, the numbers in this building are pretty solid for Republicans, so it's really a question of whether the Republican Party has the guts to pass a good constitutional carry law. Now, with all the constitutional carry laws that passed in 2022 and 2021, pretty darn good. 9 states. And right now, South Carolina has Georgia on its edge, and then you look around and say, okay, you got Alabama. As you keep going around in the South, you have Tennessee and Kentucky and West Virginia all in this region. I mean, really, North Carolina on its northern border and then Florida are the only states here in this little region that don't have it. And so, yeah, they kind of feel left out. Pressure. That's what does it. Politicians feeling the pressure. That's why anytime somebody tells you in politics, don't worry, we got this, you don't have to worry about calling your politician, that person's a snake oil salesman. Don't listen to them. They're selling you a bill of goods so you'll give them money. They're not actually doing the work. Anybody who wants to keep all the pressure in the building, or I'll do it in smoke-filled rooms, yeah, that's when gun owners get screwed. Now I know many of you would rather gouge your eyes out with a rusty spoon than have to wear a suit and a tie and go talk to politicians. And yes, I understand that. There are some nice things about it. There are some great people. You will meet politicians, elected officials, who are rock solid. They're not the rule, they're the exception, especially in this building. There are a lot of good old boys who will smile and shake your hand, and they dress nice, and they're not that solid. But even today, we were in the gallery and we got recognized by members of the House of Representatives, and so a couple of members came up to talk to us. Both of them were Democrats and African Americans, and they were asking about the gun issues and some concerns they had, because they were concerned in their community that you can't carry a gun in the car, and if you do, you're going to get pulled over, and you're probably going to get arrested, especially in their communities. They were kind of very worried about civil liberties, and so we talked with them about a number of bills and/or amendments to existing bills, and we're going to actually consider that, as well as some other projects. We don't care what party you're from. We just want you to vote right, and frankly, we want freedom. We want freedom not just for the conservatives in South Carolina or Texas or wherever. We want it for everybody. And if you're in a rough community, we know you might need a firearm for self-defense. In fact, we think you're crazy if you don't have one anywhere, especially in rough communities. And they have concerns about getting charged if they're going to carry it. And remember, many of them are dealing with a very different world 30, 40 years ago here in South Carolina. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what my life looks like and my travels, and I'll try and include you on some of them.